everybody to episode 2 of the Hitting Zone, which is brought to you by YBM Cast. Pretty excited. Again, episode number 2, so it's new for me. Last week we had Brent Porcio from Top Velocity on, and today we got Josh Cathcart from Hitting Done Right, which for me, I'm super pumped about this. Josh, I guess this may have been around COVID. I started following you on social media. COVID changed a lot of things for us hitting coaches, facility owners. We had to kind of adapt to business. I don't know about where you're at here in Missouri. They had shut down parts of the areas, and so we had to come up with creative ways. And that's when I think I started following you, and it was one specific thing, and I don't know if you still do these things, but it was your PVC work. Yeah, so I was talking to a golfer, and we were talking about dissociation of the hips, separation, things like that. And he's like, man, you got to check out these PVC videos. And I'm like, who uses, PVCs or whatever? And I was like, I got a whole bunch of them because we train kids to lift, and so we help our youth kids out. So I had 100 PVCs. Of course, we could do this with our teams. And sure enough, you were one of the first YouTube videos that had popped up. And you were doing little, 5, 6, 7-minute videos on different PVC drills. And from following you in the last 4 years, you've come you've advanced your information out there to the people from that to where you're at today as a content creator, as a hitting coach, as a coach in general. So thanks for that PVC video a long time ago.
Man, you're welcome. It's it's funny that we bring that up because I kind of battled that for a while early on. When I was in high school and when I first got into coaching, my guys were very old school. This is the way that we do things. We're going to knob to the ball it. We're going to squish the bucket. We're going to try to hit down on it and do all this stuff. And the first PVC stuff that I ever saw was very exaggerated. And it's funny when I talk about it, like I have to do the whole motion. It was very exaggerated with the shoulder tilt. And I was like, man, I don't know about this. This looks a whole lot like an uppercut. And so I dove in a little bit and started learning and researching, and that's where the whole posture and tilt and the hip and shoulder separation and everything else started coming in. And man, I started out with the young ones. I didn't want to break in this new, hand it to one of my high school kids. Hey, dude, try this PVC real quick. I want to test the waters here. So I started with the young ones and started seeing crazy good results because I would move the tee around. And it's one of the things that I do to this day. I will start young players with the PVC across their chest, but with the high tee, so that they have to feel that shoulder path, that shoulder plane, however you want to describe it, with the more elevated pitch, which they're going to be flatter, and then gradually working down so they can start to understand posture and tilt. And man, I saw great results with contact. I started seeing more power because you could really get them to feel the hips moving. And then I call it the tornado effect, up through the upper body and then out the top. And yeah, people really took to it. It's something that's easy to do. And there's so many variations now. It's crazy. Every cage at the facility I work at has a piece laying right there. And you'd be like, hey, hold on. Let me grab the PVC. Get this feel. And one of the things that is so great about it is the visual aspect because it's long. And so when you put it in their hands, they can see as I move, the knob is going here, the barrel is doing this. Where and people, the naysayers and whatnot, will just put a bat in their hand. Well, when you're working with young kids that aren't really athletic yet, that visual helps a ton for them just being body aware. So yeah, man, the PVC, and now it's everywhere.
And now it's everywhere. I think, and I'm not sure if it was actually something that you might have talked about, but one of my favorite things was the 3 points of contact with the PVC actually behind your back. So it had your neck, your middle of your back, and your lower back. you had to have those 3 points of connection kind of in your feel of your swing, and you did it in an upright position at a 45 and a 90, and that just the difference of hitting the up pitch, middle, and the down pitch, and I still use those, and I think what that led me to do is just start to get kind of weird with coaching. I started following a lot of Japanese videos and instruction, and people used to laugh at me because I would have people hitting off of those small trampolines like you can get at your Walmarts, and I think that was something you had on one of your videos early in the days of COVID, and
Yep.
it's training the body to do things. And which kind of leads me into this next conversation with you. I'm not sure when this posted, but I just saw this not too long ago, and you had talked about parents and hitting coaches and the lifting of the baseball, which kind of feeds off that PVC and how you were feeling when you were talking about it. The lift of the baseball. I loved that video where you had talked about, hey, if you got a hitting coach that's trying to tell you to lift, find a new one, which I'm sure ruffled some feathers. However, I'm on that same agreement even as we progress through, the ranks of working with our middle school kids to our high school kids to our young college athletes. I think just in general, trying to teach lift is kind of the wrong concept a little bit right now.
I tell you, when I posted that, the reason I post and a lot of my stuff, and I'm sure you have caught on, but for anybody that may not follow me, you talked about content creator. I hate that. Like I feel like I'm a baseball coach that just like I don't think of myself as a content creator because I literally do everything on my phone. It's in the moment. It's not edited out. It's not produced. It's just whatever. And a lot of my stuff, especially in cage, comes from what I have just seen. And I was working with a client, and their coach, the guy that he had been going to, was a finish high, get the ball in the air. Well, this kid was an 11-year-old that weighed 70 pounds. And, his miss was an infield pop up. And it was just like, look, man, like I get it that at the bigger levels, if you're going to go play D1 college baseball, yeah, guys don't want to recruit guys that are hitting hard ground balls. But if you are a normal baseball player that wants to play this game for as long as humanly possible and have success, hitting the ball on a line and keeping the ball out of the air. I'm not talking about don't hit doubles. I'm talking about your miss can't be a fly ball or a pop up if you can't hit the ball 380 feet. And I didn't get that much pushback. It was kind of surprising. I expected when I put that out there, people would be like, oh, you got to do this. And for the most part, everybody's like, man, I agree with you. I think understanding what plays, instead of watching the highlights, go watch games. And right now with the College World Series coming up, watch those games, man. Watch the hits that lead to the big innings, and then somebody hits a home run. I sat down and watched the Clemson, Florida game with my client. After our session, we went to his house and we watched that game. And I was like, dude, look at all the base hits going the other way on a line. And it's kind of like, it just opened his mind to it. He was like, oh man, that is what these successful hitters are doing. And so teaching kids to get on plane, that's the thing. Get on plane with the baseball, and when you're in the cage, I said I was on a Facebook or Instagram conversation about this, and I said I like 8 to 15 degree balls in the cage. I realize that 8 degrees for some people is a ground ball, but in reality, it's a low top spin, usually line drive that's gonna hit on the back of the infield. If we can hit that and up to 15 degree, which is right above the L screen, bro, you can play for a long time and you don't have to be real big to do it.
Yeah, and I really like that because I'm 43. I'm getting ready to turn 44. We're close to the same age. I've talked to you a few times in private messages and stuff like that, just based on you commenting on other people's stuff, kind of having that same feel of, hey, when the coach told me to jump, I jumped. I didn't ask questions why, which I wish I may have known more then to ask why, so that I
Mm-hmm.
had a better understanding when I ultimately started teaching kids. But when I'm in a cage, I tell my guys all the time. I follow the guys at 108 Performance in Eugene.
Yeah.
Brubinker, I think is his last name. I'm not sure how to say his last name, but
It's
uh,
just bleaker.
Bleeker, yeah. When he had
Yeah.
Lance Berkman on, and he talked about
Mm-hmm.
top corner, middle, opposite field hitting, and everything we hit to second base, right? We want to hit it right at the second baseman, up the middle, pull sides in the air. And, when you think about that, you just think about what it takes to hit pull side in the air. Like, how can you hit that pitch? And then breaking that down into, the kind of the zones of hitting. But what I loved about that piece is it's not that we want every kid to hit ground balls to second base. It's the theory of what it takes to make that contact, that directional, that intention, however you want to discuss that. But it starts leading into other opportunities. I mean, when you have your 0-0 count and you're taking your best swing, take your daddy hack. But from there, you have to take what's given to you. So if an umpire is calling the outside corner and they're living there, why are we still trying to pull the baseball? And so I struggle with our youth trying to understand, they see a guy that's big and strong out on their front foot that takes a baseball on the outside half and can flick it over the left field wall. And I remember watching ESPN. I remember watching the top 10. I remember seeing these things. But I didn't play that way. I didn't play based on the highlights. I played based on the conversations that Jack Buck was having, and Kerry up in Chicago, because that's what we had a chance to watch. And I just think about today's baseball, youth baseball. What is something, you just talked about it a little bit. Obviously, hitting hard ground balls turns into hard line drives turn into doubles will turn into dingers, then you're going to go 0 for 10, then you're going to hit hard ground balls for base hits, then you're going to have a bloop base hit, then you're going to go to line
Yeah.
drives. That's the nature of baseball, right? What is your encouragement to that 10U to like 13U athlete that's really trying to find themselves? What is your approach to like your cage work? Like, what would you give that parent and that client?
Depending on their ability level, you're going to have 10-year-olds that are just coming in and don't really have a clue. And then you're going to have 10-year-olds that move like high schoolers. And so you have to first evaluate that. And then you evaluate the mental capacity. Do I have a kid that is already thinking like a ball player? Or do I have a kid that is just out here having fun with his buddies, doesn't have a care in the world? He just knows hit ball good, swing miss bad. Like, if that's their mentality, then you approach it different. Um, I'm always about consistency in your practice first. No matter what level you are, if you want to excel to whatever your dreams are, some guys just want to make their high school team. Some guys want to be on TV playing in the College World Series. Some guys are dreaming about big league. No matter what it is, hitting in particular, just like, other skills in other sports, you have to be consistent. And so lining out a feasible, consistent plan is number one. If I've got a kid that mom and dad are going to have to ask every other day, hey, man, you need to go hit, you need to go hit, you need to go hit, that plan's going to look a lot different than a kid who gets home from school, does his homework, and is like, hey, take me to the cage, take me to the cage. So consistency and then formulating a good plan, number one. Number two, have realistic expectations. It's one of the biggest things that I see. Parents have these expectations that are so lofty and unattainable for probably a high school kid, and they're putting them on a 10-year-old. Um, and that's where I come in and have to be mentor. I have to be psychologist. I have to, wear all of these hats to get players and parents on the same page. What does the player want out of this? Not what does mom and dad want, not what did dad do when he was playing. What is this player capable of, and what do they want? Then when we go into the cage, I try to formulate it around that. If I've got a kid that I know is going to go home and he's going to practice 5 days a week on his own and go to his team practices, that cage session is going to be a lot more serious. I'm going to really find out, hey, are you a visual guy? Are you a feel guy? Are you an example guy? Do I need to get in there and show you? Do I need to physically put my hands on you and get you in positions? Or can I just show you video of guys that kind of move like you, and you're able to do it because you're a good athlete. So it's all very individualistic. Um, I'm a pretty serious guy when we get in the cage. Just again, with our age, I'm not a young 25-year-old. I'm not a young 30-year-old. Trying to get my feet wet and make everybody happy and get my name out there. I'm a pretty cut and dry, black and white. Either you're going to work or you're not. Especially with the amount of money that parents are spending these days. Um, I try in the best way possible to have kids understand, even at a young age, about time and money investment and kind of their end of the bargain. If mom and dad are driving you 45 minutes to an hour hitting lesson and spending 100, 100 plus whatever people may charge, you have part of this deal is you go home and you work on it. You know, if you were going around the corner to your Little League field and you're paying somebody $20 an hour to throw you VP, that's a little different. But if we're paying for this, higher level training, knowledge, experience, everything else, you got to hold up your end of the bargain. Um, so it all just expectations, ability, both mental and physical, kind of dictate what I do. But at the end of the day, consistency, man. Just
Yeah, that's the toughest one, and I think with youth side, I've been in this. When I got back from college, I started working for one of the major area batting cages, guys that played professional baseball, high level college baseball. I started working for them when I came back, and believe it or not, Matthew Kachuk and Brady Kachuk, who is playing in the I guess Matthew's down in Florida, up 2-0. I got a chance to do some camps with them. That's how I kind of got my feet wet, was with this organization. Allowed me to kind of learn, get my feet wet first, and then I've progressed in here. So I have a really difficult time on relating with the young athlete because I want to have the mental side of the game. When my dad told me swing hard, Casey, hit it kind of thing, right? And that's what I always wanted to do. He told me just to hit it as hard as I could. It didn't matter if I hit it straight into the ground, straight up in the air, over the fence, just barrel the baseball. And I was that guy that was, I ate the baseballs, I ate the bat, and I just loved hitting. I never had a problem with it. I never had a problem with failure. And I always swung, though. It was a hockey stick, if it was a tennis racket, a golf club. I was always moving my bodies in those positions, which I felt like helped me become great with the hand-eye coordination, the timing of everything. I didn't have instruction. And I feel like at 10 years old, I feel like we're doing this disservice to our 10U kids, and I'm talking about most of the public, because of course we have those high-level kids that have intelligent minds that you can, like you said, you could show them they're either doers, whatever. And I'm thinking, like, I have a 10-year-old kid that a parent is bringing them in saying, I want my kid to be a better hitter. Well, your kid doesn't practice. Your kid is not consistent. Your athlete, I should say athlete, but your athlete's not consistent. And so if we don't have consistency and you're not helping with that consistency, the hitting lessons are really at 10 years old, I don't think they're necessary. I think they should throw a rock up and learn how to hit it in the backyard and try to bust out neighbors' windows. We have a lot of kids that do that or watch this show, so please don't do that, but especially with all the subdivisions. But that's, my grandparents used to have a field behind them, and I would literally take the rocks out of there with that big red bat, throw it up and hit it. And I feel like nowadays you get to 14 years old, and the first thing I do with my 14U team is I look down at them when they're struggling, and they're looking for me for guidance on how to hit with 2 strikes or 1 strike, or what is a hitter's count? And I'm trying to teach these things because they're so focused on mechanical things for the last 4 years. So when you think consistency, are you one of those guys that like, hey, consistently come to me, or are you like just say, hey, let's rep as much as we can? Then at like 13, 14 years old, let's start building up that IQ and start getting a little bit finer with details, because now they're starting to understand their bodies a little bit more, at least on the baseball side. I know softball may be a little early with their maturity, but kind of expand on that consistency with like the average athlete?
So I have a formula that I came up with years ago, just kind of as a baseline to work off of. And this is what I would call the more serious ball player. Um, if you're coming to lessons and you are considering yourself a serious ball player, okay, um, take your age, divide that by two, and then multiply it by 100. So a 14-year-old, 7 times 100, should be taking 700 reps, swing reps a week. That doesn't mean full batting practice. That means you could stand in front of a mirror with a bat, go load to launch, check your body position. That counts as a rep. You know, going out and dry swinging as hard as you can, trying to stay somewhat balanced, working on tracking with your head, you know, shoulder to shoulder. All of those count as reps. But just continuously getting in, like you said, the swing moves, just continuously doing those reps, just making that habitual throughout the week. You know, it doesn't have to be high stress. It doesn't have to be dad sitting outside the cage. You're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. No, go out in your backyard, get in front of a mirror, you know, just some sort of focused reps. And then off of that, you know, you go and again, it's the athlete. Some kids can go out there and actually focus for an hour. They're loving it. They're just eating it up. Some kids go out there in 10 minutes, they're cashed, man. I'm done. And so understanding what you're capable of. Because again, if you're serious and we're really trying to get better, doing empty reps just to say I did reps isn't going to do any good. So marrying those two things, you know, what is my mental capacity for this? What is my physical ability for this? And how do I make that work to make sure that I'm getting the consistent reps that are going to help me improve? Um, the other thing that I always am asking parents, especially with the young ones, that my expectations for practice are lower, is are they getting more independent? Are they starting to want to go do this on their own? Are they starting to ask questions? Are they starting to make adjustments on their own? Are they talking more about this, you know, on the way home from a lesson or on the way home from a game or whatever else it is? So again, it gives, because I may see a kid for 30 minutes once a week. I have no idea what they're really doing. And so asking those questions and kind of monitoring from afar so I can better do my job, set my expectations accordingly.
Yeah, I like that. Which, you know, I think about the conversations after games that we might have on the way home. You know, where parents might get upset because their kid was 0 for 4, instead of letting them have the conversation about their gameplay. Hey, what'd you think about me playing? Or hey, you know that situation where you made that mistake. You know, next time, what do you think you do differently? And kind of asking these questions a little bit differently, kind of, you know, when you're on the way home, instead of being such fueled by failure, because this is a game of failure. And I think we have to embrace failing. And I try to flip that and use that. I always ask my kids, I got an 18U team. I coach a 16U team and an 18U team. And I got some 18U kids that they're afraid to make mistakes, which I always tell them that if you're afraid to make a mistake, then you're going to be afraid to succeed, because you're never going to put yourself in position to be successful in those high pressure situations. And I believe baseball is probably one of the most pressured, other outside of playoffs, just, you know, a regular season game. I feel like baseball has so many different pressure situations in a game compared to maybe hockey. I could be wrong on hockey, because hockey's, you know, and you wait till the last 2 minutes of a basketball game.
Well, I think that there's, even though baseball is a team sport, I think that hitting and pitching are very much individual activities, and that in itself makes it a little more difficult. Now, you could attribute, I mean, not that the skill level is the same, but standing on a free throw line in front of 30,000 people trying to shoot a free throw, I'm sure that could be a little nerve wracking at some point. But I think just that. And then kids, they can be told over and over and over, hey, man, you're going to fail more than you're ever going to succeed at the plate. Embrace it. Like, we can talk about that until we're blue in the face. But when you have kids that are playing this game at a young age, especially, and the Not to say that the coaches don't know, but I think that the coaches do a ton of disservice to young players because if you go up on a Saturday and you're a 10-year-old and in your pool games you go 0 for 6 with 4 hard hit balls and 2 strikeouts, but you're 0 for 6, you go from hitting in the 2 hole to hitting in the 9 hole on Sunday because the coach is looking at 0 for 6. And so that shatters your confidence. Well, you're just going to move me down. If I strike out, you're going to move me down if you do this. And so they're told something, hey, failure is part of the game. Failure is part of the game. But then when they fail, there's a consequence, like a true consequence that they feel on an emotional and mental level. Instead of, hey, man, we've been practicing for, 2 weeks. This is the lineup that I think is going to do the best job. This is what we're rolling with. And let them go play.
That comes back to
Earn your spot.
Yeah, that comes back to your consistency that you were talking about earlier, because the consistency just can't be in the parenting and the client, our kid. It has to be in the coaching side. And I agree with you. I had made those mistakes early on when I coached, especially at the young age, like 14s going into high school. I'll be quite honest, man. I do not like coaching youth level kids. It's hard for me. I don't understand the swag. I don't have the mental side of it. I want to do different things. And so I have a hard time coaching like 10U to 13U, if you will. I like coaching that, or instruction. I like teaching in practice settings. The game stuff is not for me. But going back to the consistency, I made those mistakes where, a kid would be 0 for 6, and I was like, I can't hit him here because the kid in front of him is 0 for 6. So I'm 0 for 12 between two guys in clutch situations, and so I move him out and don't think about that. I was on my way in, and I heard I was listening to Sports Talk, and they were talking about Alec Burleson, Cardinals guys, and how last year he wasn't consistent. And he even said in his interview that I didn't know where I was going to be that day. I didn't know where I was going to hit. I didn't know where I was going to play, and I failed a lot. And it took me a long time to understand how to deal with that. And so eventually he learned how to deal with it. And then his mindset was, if I want to play every day, I got to do better. So he worked harder in the offseason so the coach couldn't take him out of the game. He had to make that choice about somebody else. But again, I think about why some of the Cardinals, I don't know how much of all of baseball that you follow, but the Cardinals had struggled this year.
Bring it on. I'm a junkie.
Perfect. Well, then you know that the Cardinals had struggled for quite a few months this year with just the hitting, the philosophies of it, or whatever was going on in that clubhouse. But if you watch the lineup, it was this every other day. You had one guy is hitting leadoff.
I'm an Astros fan. Have you seen what the Astros lineup has looked like?
Well, up until we played you guys just a few days ago, it's been bad, especially with Jose Abreu in your lineup. But I mean, I get it. You just don't experience this at 10. You experience this at the highest levels these days because you're paid millions to produce. Your parents are paying thousands for you to produce, and so the pressure, maybe it's unfair for a 10-year-old, but it is real. I mean, there's dollars being spent.
Oh, it's real.
Right?
It's totally real, and we probably don't have enough time on this show to get into my thoughts on travel baseball.
Nope, I'm going to ask.
Okay, well, and the thing is I have done it all. At the youth level, I have coached high school for 9 years. At the freshman level, the JV level, the varsity level. I ran our travel program at hardball for 8 years. We had teams from 10 all the way to 18. I coached starting at 13-year-old teams all the way to 18. I was the team coordinator, so I handled all the finances. I handled all the parent complaints. I did all of those things. So there is true pressure, but the pressure is coming from the outside. It's not because of the game. To your point, it's parents paying money that want to see success. They want to see wins. They want to see rings. They want to see, traveling to these big tournaments with kids that have no business being there. And that goes back to the expectations. It's all, at the end of the day, I hate blaming. Everybody has some blame here. But as it pertains to travel baseball, it is 90% parents and coaches who should not be coaching, it's their fault that the dynamics are the way it is. And then you have the corporations, you know, that are basically using that fuel to make millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on that. And I've said it before on podcasts. The kids are basically just pawns at some point. The only players that should be playing travel baseball are the true elite for their age. Um, and do you want me to get on the soapbox now, or did you have something else?
The soapbox can go the way it goes, man. I agree with the
Okay.
same thing though, and I'm part of that. I'm part of the problem. I always like to say I'm part of the solution because I care about training and developing our athletes. That's my main focus. So when you pay for $1 for me, you're paying for value of what I'm giving you from my time, my instruction, my coaching, all of these things to make me feel like it's worth it for these families. I do not like the state, especially in St. Louis area. I don't like the state that we're in. I don't like how much we're taxing families. I don't like how much the field time is, the gate fees. Like, there's so much of this that bothers me. But when I go back and think, and I'm not sure, you're from Texas, correct? So
Yeah.
when you played, say, sixth, seventh, eighth grade middle school ball, did you guys have select ball, or was it recreational, if you will, in today's standards?
Yeah, it was recreational until high school, and then once you were in high school, literally for the entire. So the way that Houston's big, and then you have like Northside Houston where you have like the Woodlands. You have Westside Houston that is like Katy. You have East, you get into like Pasadena, almost Barbers Hill, and then South you have where I'm from is like Pearland, Friendswood, that area. So huge amount. When I was in high school, there were three teams for that whole area. And if you made one of those three teams, you were cream of the crop, legit. And then you traveled to Oklahoma, Louisiana, Dallas, New Mexico, California, wherever, and you played true travel select baseball. And if you didn't make those teams, then you either played American Legion, which was a little bit of a step up above rec, or you played in your local rec team. And for us, that was called Babe Ruth. Um, and basically, it was better than Little League for, you know, 14 to 18-year-olds. And that's all it was. We didn't have, man, there, at some point I looked a couple years ago, in the Houston area, there were 257 12U teams.
I like how you're raising your eyebrows here because you're wondering there's not 257. I mean, it's what,
I mean, do
2,500
the math on
athletes?
that.
Yeah, there's
Do
not
the math on
2,700
that.
athletes. I'm not that quick at math, but
Yeah, yeah.
at 2,700 athletes is what I'm kind of getting at if you average, 10, 12 kids on a team. And I know that there's not that many kids that are that good to be able to qualify them as this premier level athlete. I've always
That's
looked
it.
at it the same way, and I know it's an age thing. And I'm sure that you agree that every kid, if they want to play baseball, male or female, should have a chance to play their diamond sports. They just need to identify whether or not they're this level or this level. And playing at this level, there is nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong
I,
with being a recreational athlete.
I have no problem with that. And I want everybody to know the argument is, well, how are they going to get better if they don't play better competition? Well, I have an answer. Now, my answer isn't feasible because it would cost a lot of people a lot of money, and so it was never happened. But I have done a lot of talking about this topic to a lot of people at different levels of the game that are ex pros, that are full time travel coaches, that are organizers. Um, Talked to the guy, actually the top velocity guy. We talked about this. We need to make academies. They do it in the Latin American countries. I understand that we have different resources here, but just as an example, if you took regions and you took Houston, Austin, Dallas, that would be a southeast or south region. And you could bring kids from all over, okay? But you bring them in, and we're going to be serious baseball players. We're going to have this school here, and then we're going to have tryouts. And whatever team you make, That is the team that goes. And the top team for whatever age, 12U, 13U, 14U, and you do it starting at 12. Okay. Uh, if you make the top team, you travel. You are a true travel team. Those are the ones that go to the out of state tournaments. Those are the ones that go to the Big World Series, whatever. Then you have your second tier. It's basically a high school setup. You have your varsity, you have your JV, you have your sophomore team. But you're starting with 12-year-olds, and you have each one at each age level. And you can always move up and you can always move down. If you don't perform, you go back to the JV and you do that. And so you have these regional academies all over the nation, and the best of the best play. And then those other kids that don't play on the top teams, then they're playing at the more local events. I don't think that there should be double A select baseball. Like that doesn't work for me. That's like freshman baseball. Okay? If you're that good as a freshman, you're on the varsity. If you're a double A player, you're not a true select baseball player. The major level players are. And when you get all these kids, just thousands and thousands and thousands of teams, dude, if you go out and watch double A baseball from 12-year-old down, even 13-year-old down, it's bad baseball. That's not a knock on the kids. It's just, it is what it is. And I understand they're out there trying to get better, but we don't have to pay a mortgage for this.
There's no way I could disagree with that. And I think about just our level of kids, and so, when we have our group come in, we are probably as far as Missouri goes, double A baseball, I would assume is a little different than what you would look at double A baseball there, because that's the kind of our second tier, if you will. So like our JV level, if you would. And I like coaching that level group because of their work ethic, because they don't know it all, because they ask questions, they challenge you as coaches. The encouragement's very different. The dedication's somewhat, can be different. The challenge is obviously different. And I think about those things as like, man, there's a ton of double A kids that when I watch one team beat somebody 15-0, and I'm like, why can't they see that? Why can't they see that their kids cannot pitch with us or hit with us or field with us? The parents don't understand the game. The kids don't understand the game. The coaches don't have the IQ for the whys and teaching this game. And so, I am not trying to pick on somebody. I am trying to say, why can you not play the level that your athletes are? So if you're a coach that's forced into a situation, or you're doing the right thing by trying to help 12 kids play baseball, man, stay at the rec level. If you need help, find an assistant coach that's on the same level as you. My son was not a very good baseball player, so I didn't put him in this. I didn't coach him so that I could play him or get him on a double A major team. He didn't make his high school team. I coached at that high school. I cut my own son because he wasn't good enough. And why can't that be okay? And why do we have to just keep pushing it out there? Because there's still going to be tournaments to play as recreational athletes.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't want, when I talk about this, I get emotional is probably not the right word. I get amped up about it because I want every child that wants to play this wonderful game that I love and have lived my life and now have made it a career for 23 years, coaching youth baseball. I want everybody to play and have fun. This goes back to the parents. The expectations, they want to keep up with the Joneses. Why in the world are we going to play a double? And I use Texas as an example because why in the world are you taking, if it's truly about development? Now, if you tell me, hey, I want to be on a travel team because I want to go these cool places and I want my son or daughter to be around their friends and we're going to turn these into vacations, and you're willing to spend that money, dude, that is on you. But if you are going to tell me that you are playing travel baseball for the development of your player, you don't need to travel thousands of miles. You don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. If you're truly in it for the development, then stay local, Play the teams around that are on the same level. If you're smoking them, okay, move on up, go on down the road. But just it's ludicrous to me. Kind of to your point, why can people not see this? Like I've heard like stories every single year of youth teams that travel to go to Gulf Shores, Alabama, or to go out to Lake Point in Georgia, or they go to um, crap. Now it's on Jupiter in Florida, or they go out to the big events in California, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we went out there and we were outscored 57-2." Like you didn't know, you didn't understand that was going to happen. Like you're just out of your area because you're wanting to say, "Oh, we went here. Oh, I played here. Oh, you know." So it is what it is, man. People are going to do what they want to do, but if we're really talking about development, you got to understand where you are, and you develop more by practice anyway, not in playing in tournaments.
Yeah, which goes back to something you said. I don't know if it was on a different podcast, but you had talked about the test. And what I loved about this that you brought up, and like I said, I follow you. There's shorts, whatever. And I was following you on this, and I like your thought process on the differences between practice and games. And talk about just because I think it leads into this, right? We talk about all the travel. I'm getting ready to leave for Arkansas. We're playing in the Chad Wolf Classic. If it's 16U, I'm excited about it. We haven't won a tournament yet in St. Louis. We finished well. We got unlucky, or the team was better than us, whatever the case may be. I'm a little nervous because we haven't beat everybody here in St. Louis yet. However, I do have a good enough group that I think we can pitch and play defense with them. Hitting, I think, is going to struggle. So I wanted to challenge the families. The families kind of on board. It's basically the one travel date that we'll have. And they're worried about some of these things because there's going to be like college coaches there, and it's 290-something teams, and there's 30 brackets or whatever, pools, and they're nervous about the wrong things. And there's some good teams coming in. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
I'm nervous, but I look at this and I think about the test that you had talked about, where yesterday at practice they were so worried about the wrong things. And I'm like, man, why can't you come to practice, get your work in, have fun, ask questions, instead of taking 30 swings in 20 seconds, why don't we take 5 swings in 30 seconds, have conversations about them, and not put this pressure that you have to be perfect on a pitch up in the zone or down in the zone. Talk about that test a little bit that you had mentioned on that podcast.
So the premise of that was players come in, and especially the younger ones, but even at the high school level, like my high school and the college guys that I work with, not so much because we've gone through this process and we've talked about it. But from 9 to 13, very specifically those ages, players come to practice or they come to their hitting sessions and they want to impress you. They want to be perfect. They are afraid to make mistakes. And so their practice sessions end up being nervous, tight. They don't learn how to make adjustments on their own. They're always waiting to be told exactly what to do. It's not a fluid, not fluid both physically and emotionally. It's a very what's a good word? Regimented, I guess. Kind of vibe where it's like, dude, just loosen up. Like I tell kids all the time in my cage, I'm like, this is like a big science lab. Like you come in here, you experiment, you find what works, you blow shit up, and then you try to do something else again. And if that doesn't work, then you try something else. And I'm never going to be upset with you for swinging and missing or fouling a ball off or whatever, as long as I can tell that you're working to get better. This is not a test. This is your study session. This is your tutor. This is the environment where you should feel the most comfortable to make mistakes. The game is the test. Have you prepared properly? Are you ready for the moment? Has the homework, does that translate to good testing? And then in games, you have another source of information that you can take in. Well, this didn't work in the game. I can go back to the lab. I can try this. I can try this and figure out what's going to work. Every player is going to approach the game different. You've got some players that are going there and, dude, they're just going to be nonchalant. They're just staying loose. They're jamming to their headphones. It may look like they don't have a care in the world, and then they go out and ball because that's what they need. You may have other kids that are sitting over there, very, direct, deliberate, blinders on basically. I'm getting my warm-ups done. I'm visualizing. I'm looking at my swing from the cage, whatever their process is. Different strokes for different folks on all aspects. But allowing kids to make mistakes in practice. Now, granted, hustle mistakes, mental mistakes, and situational stuff that you've gone over for a year with a group, yeah, come down on them, man. Like we're here to get better. But the physical, I'm trying my best. I booed a ground ball because my feet got messed up on this backhand. I lunged out at a off-speed pitch in batting practice because I wasn't able to get into my load properly. Like, don't come down on them. Just let them work through it. Just be like, hey, man, may want to think about staying back. Or, hey, that first step over there is the one that got you. Just be aware of it next time. Those type things, and encourage them to make their own adjustments. I tell kids all the time, I'm not going to spoon feed it to you. Those kids that get in the cage and every swing that's not a line drive, they'll look up at you and want you to tell them something. It's like, just make another swing, dude. It's okay. you know. So they're on pins and needles all the time. So give your kids grace in practice. Teach them to give themselves grace in practice, and understand that when it comes down to game time, that is your test. If you've prepared properly and you give it all you got, let the chips fall where they may. The kid is going to know, and it doesn't matter how old they are. In their heart of hearts, the kid is going to know if they're ready to go out and play or not.
Yep. There's a lot of things that you said there that I think about on a routine basis, because my biggest goal the last couple of years has been to let these kids obviously adjust on their own, because I feel like, hey, so example, outside pitch, if you pull the baseball, and all I say is, if you pull a baseball, we're going top corner. Here's, there's the why they get early on. I don't talk about the why anymore. So if they have an outside pitch and they swing at it and it's rolled over, and I go, hey, what are we supposed to do if we pull a baseball? Top corner. Well, typically what happens, they make the different adjustment. They'll hit the ball right side like they were supposed to. And the adjustments are what I chase now, because the game adjusts every time there's a new pitcher. The pitcher has to adjust. And as you get older, adjustments happen so fast and so much that, at bat to at bat can change. Pitch to pitch we know can change. So I don't want my athletes living on a mistake. I don't want them living with the bad pitch that they made that gave up a 2-out double with the bases loaded. I want to work through those experiences. What were your emotions like? How can we breathe through those? How can we mentally prep for that? Which some of them you can't, that. But I am trying to give them the ability to take on these roles, crush them, because what I've learned is they've been more successful long term by starting to build their IQ that way, instead of me always trying to tell them how to coach through situations.
Do you follow Propel Hitting?
Maybe. I'll have to look.
If you don't follow, and for anybody that is listening to this once we put it out, y'all need to follow Propel Hitting. His name is Cameron Ginger, and he has an entire program. It's basically a questionnaire that players and coaches can go through, and it basically has an algorithm and spits out this information and tells you what type of learner you are. And from there, you can build on what he calls making shortcuts. And it's short mental adjustments that each player creates on their own for themselves based on their tendencies. And dude, it has worked wonders. He works with youth players, he works with professional players, is a super, super cerebral guy. Like one of the most well spoken, intelligent guys that I've had the pleasure of collaborating with. He's one of my good buddies at this point. Um, he's a really, really good follower. He would be great to come on here and do this. So check him out. But that is the name of the game. I tell kids all the time, the three things that are going to get you the furthest in this game are proper preparation, giving yourself grace, and then the ability to make adjustments faster and better than everybody else. So it's, and that's outside of, you got to be a good athlete, like get bigger, faster, stronger.
That's the start.
with those things in place, those three things, man.
Josh, with that being said, man, it's been awesome having you on. I think we're going to end the show off that because I think that's great to kind of just put a cap on what this show has been about. I want to get you on again because I want to kind of dig in a little bit more with your travel ball as we're getting into things like tryouts and different things like that. And here in this area, the tryouts are starting and stuff. So what I want to do is maybe have this conversation again down the road, maybe after the season. But I'll connect with you again through the Messenger or however we start connecting moving forward. I appreciate you coming on today, taking time out of your day to join us. It's episode number 2. So we will get this out later this afternoon, and we'll get it over to you. And again, thank you, man, and thanks for the recommendation. I'm gonna get that follow and see if I can't get him on the show. Maybe all of us on the show.
You would not be disappointed. So I really appreciate it, man. And just for the record, I am not against travel baseball. I just think that the model right now could be better. And I think that people are dragging their feet on making it better because of how big the money has gotten.
Yeah, it's 19,
I want everybody.
$19 billion, right?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I want everybody who loves this game to play this game for as long as they possibly can and enjoy the heck out of it. I just think that the American model is a little skewed.
Especially comparative to the foreign model that's happening down, in the South, Mexico and beyond, and DR and stuff like that. It's very different, and you're starting to see that level change in the major leagues now. You're starting to see much more Latin athletes that are there versus American athletes or African American athletes. It's changing. The dynamics are changing big time. The minor leagues are filled with Latin athletes. That's all they do is baseball.
Absolutely.
Their math, their science, their history, it's all baseball. And I love the academy thing.
1,000%.
Yeah, I always wanted to try to work at IMG, but I don't like the sun apparently as a ginger. So I'm allergic to it. But
I think there's ways that we can get it done. America has the finances to do it. It's just a matter of the best interest of the kid and not the best interest of corporations.
Yep, ego's got to drop, man. I appreciate it, Josh. Thank you, and can't wait to have you on again, man.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. You guys be good.
Yes, sir. Thank you.